So yes, Ankit Rawat, hello, hello, hello. So yes, good evening. This side Dr. Abhijeet, and today I'm going to discuss some important topics in neuroanatomy. I will be discussing about the histology of the cerebrum, homunculus, right? Even I will be discussing about the transverse section of the cerebral hemispheres, the lateral ventricle and the third ventricle. These are like very, very important topics that I will be covering up today. Yes, so before starting with the session, yes, doing hard. Hi, dear Khan, hello, Dr. Akhilesh, good evening. Yes, exam is coming. Please help us. Please try to attend the sessions live. You will be like, so before starting with the session, guys, just give me a thumbs up in the chat box if the audio and visuals are perfectly fine so that I can start with the class. Chalo. फटाफट से बता दो if the audio and visuals are like perfectly fine so that I can start with the class. Dr. Akhilesh, okay, okay. Sanjana, very good. Yes, new content for you. Okay, perfect, perfect, guys. Like you guys are awesome. So yes, doing hard, perfect. So let us first discuss the histology of the cerebral cortex. So guys, please try to draw with me every particular topic I will be drawing in front of you, and we will just try to make the things simpler, right? So let us discuss about the histological section. Yes, histological section of cerebral cortex. Now guys, basically guys, dear Khan, okay, we have like two types of cerebral cortex, okay? We have like two types of cerebral cortex, and if we just I just make like simplify for you people. Remember guys that we have granular cortex. We will be drawing the diagram, no need to worry. But as of now, just understand we have like two types of cortex, right? The one, it is the granular cortex. The other one, it is the agranular cortex. Agranular cortex. Now, granular cortex is the one in which the granular layer, yes, the granular layer, it is like very well developed, right? Then the pyramidal layer, right? So yes, the granular layer is, yes, it is developed more than pyramidal layer, more than the pyramidal layer. Now, when I say granular layer, guys, I am talking about the sensory cortex. Okay, I am talking about the sensory cortex. And when I say pyramidal layer, guys, I am like basically talking about the pyramidal shaped cells, or I'm also talking about the motor cortex, right? The motor cells, right? So remember guys, over here, the granular layer in the granular cortex, it is like way more developed, much more developed than the pyramidal layer, right? So, and agranular basically means the pyramidal layer will be more developed. The pyramidal layer is well developed as compared to granular layer, as compared to granular layer, right? So when I say pyramidal layer, it means the motor cortex, right? The motor cortex, it is like more developed over here. So keeping this particular information in mind, keeping this like particular information in mind, guys, let us just try to draw. Guys, we have six layers in the cerebral histology. We have like six layers in the cerebral histology, and let us just try to simplify those layers. Yes, kindly draw with me. Yes, guys, we have like six layers. Yes, we have like six layers in the cerebral cortex, right? Yes, we have six layers over here, right? Now, let us just try to divide these six layers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We have like 6 layers in the cerebral cortex. We have 6 layers in the cerebral cortex. Now from outer to inner, guys, from outer to inner, the very first layer which you will see. So we are going from outer to inner. बाहर से अंदर की तरफ. We are going from outer to inner, guys. The outermost layer, guys. The outermost layer. बाहर से अंदर की तरफ. Outer to inner. Right? The outermost layer, it is called as the plexiform layer. The outermost layer, it is called as the plexiform layer, guys. The outermost layer, it is called as the plexiform layer. Now, guys, over here, guys, you will be, okay, you will see some horizontally placed cells. Okay, you will be watching some horizontally placed cells. Yes. These cells are called as horizontal cells of Cahill. These are called as horizontal cells of Cahill. These are called as the horizontal cells of Cahill. So these you will see over here in this plexiform layer. These are called as horizontal cells of Cahill. Okay. Yes. Now these are basically the supporting cells, or they are like purely scattered around in this particular layer, right? Now in this plexiform layer, guys, you will also appreciate some fibers. Okay, these are horizontally placed fibers which you can appreciate in this particular layer, right? We have this horizontally placed fibers, right? So these are nothing but, yes, horizontally placed fibers. Or you can simply write horizontal fibers, right? So that is the plexiform layer, guys. That is the plexiform layer. Just give me a thumbs up, guys, if you're writing and drawing along with me. Just give me a thumbs up in the chat box if you're writing along with me. Yes. Now the second layer, which is deep to this plexiform layer, it is called as, yes. I'm just waiting for your thumbs up, guys. Yes. The second layer, which is like deep to this plexiform layer, it is called as the outer. Yes, Shakil, very good. Very good. Sanjana, very good. Outer granular layer. I have already told you we have the outer granular layer. Now, if the outer granular layer is this, then we must have the inner granular layer also. It is not the third one, it is the fourth one, guys. That is the inner granular layer. Inner granular layer. So remember, the second layer and the fourth layer, they are the granular layers. They are the granular layers. The second one, it is the outer granular layer, and the fourth one, it is the inner granular layer. Now, they are the layer of the granule cells, right? They are basically granule cells, guys, and you already know the granule cells are, yes, we have these densely packed cells over here. So let us just try to draw this. We have these densely packed cells over here, and these are called as, yes, the stellate cells, right? You already know these are called as the granule cells or the stellate cells. So remember, guys, in the second layer we have this, yes, stellate cells or the granule cells. These are basically the densely placed granule cells. Yes, these are densely placed granule cells, right? So that is about the outer granular layer. Okay, now coming on to the inner granular layer. So basically, let me just highlight this, guys, with a green color. So with this highlighter, so that to indicate these are all the layers of the granular cortex, right? We have the outer granular layer and we have the inner granular layer also. We have the inner granular layer also, right? Now guys, over here, just try to appreciate that over here also we will have these stellate cells or the granule cells. That's why guys we are calling it as the granular layer, right? So we will have these stellate cells or the granule cells. But along with that guys, we have certain fibers which are also present over here, right? We have certain fibers which are also present along with these granule cells in the inner granular layer, guys. Now we have horizontally running myelinated axons over here. We have these horizontally running myelinated axons over here. Okay, these are called as outer band of Bellarger, right? Now guys, again this makes sense over here. This particular part, this particular fibers, these are called as outer band of Bellarger. Outer band of Bellarger, right? But guys, remember the word, it is outer, but it is present in the inner granular layer. Now this outer band of Bellarger is nothing, guys. It is but the horizontally running myelinated axons. Myelinated axons, right? Now, this outer band of Bellarger, guys, this outer band of Bellarger, remember that, guys, that it is a feature, it is a characteristic feature of visual cortex. It is a characteristic feature of visual cortex. Visual cortex, right? Now, we will find this outer band of Bellarger in the inner granular layer. But remember guys, this outer band of Bellarger can be found at visual cortex also, right? Because in visual cortex, they will be like more dominant and we can like clearly see them, right? So it looks like a line, guys, okay, which are drawn inside the gray matter, okay? So these striations are basically, yeah, so that's why basically uh, these striations are there. They are just looking like these striations, okay? And that is why this particular part, it is also called as, yes, the striate cortex. The striate cortex. The striate cortex. The striate cortex, right? So yes, I hope this is clear, everyone. चलो फटाफट से एक थम्स अप दे दो कि आउटर और इनर समझ में आ गया. Outer and inner is done. Just give me a thumbs up in the chat box. If the outer and inner is done, it is again the same. Yes, the stellate cells, right? The stellate cells. Now, coming on to the third one, guys. Coming on to the third one, that is called as the outer pyramidal layer. It is called as the outer pyramidal layer. And the fifth one will be the inner pyramidal layer. The fifth one will be the inner pyramidal layer, right? So we have the outer pyramidal layer and we have the inner pyramidal layer. We have the outer pyramidal layer and we have the inner pyramidal layer. Now, in the pyramidal layer, guys, the outer pyramidal layer, we have these pyramidal shaped cells, right? We have pyramidal shaped cells. And over here, these pyramidal shaped cells are basically small to medium sized in the outer pyramidal layer. Okay, we have this outer pyramidal layer. We have this pyramidal shaped cells. Okay, these are nothing but the pyramidal cells. Pyramidal cells. And remember, guys, yes, these pyramidal cells which are in the outer layer, they are basically small to medial, or yeah, to medium sized. Small to medium sized. So basically the pyramidal layer will have these pyramidal cells and these are nothing but, yeah, these are like small to medium sized cells. Okay. As soon as like, no, you guys go deep, right? As soon as you go deep, the size increases. So the outermost layer, like outermost part will have like small, then you go deep, you'll find medium, then like the size increases, guys. the size increases, right? Now, coming on to the fifth layer, guys, you already know it is the inner pyramidal layer. Now, obviously, this layer, the inner pyramidal layer, it is much deeper to this outer, from this outer pyramidal layer, right? So now, guys, what will happen to the size of these pyramidal cells? The size will be increased. The size will be increased. Now, these pyramidal cells, okay, these pyramidal cells are called as the pyramidal cells of bits. These are called as pyramidal cells of bits, right? So basically, usually they are more than 100 microns in size. Usually they are 100 microns in size, right? So guys, remember over here that we also have a very light band over here which is passing in this layer. Okay, very light band, very light band which is passing in this layer, and this is called as, yes, we have the outer band of Bell-Archer, we have the inner band of Bell-Archer, we have the inner band of Bell-Archer, we have the inner band of Bell-Archer, guys, right? We have the inner band of Bell-Archer. Now coming on to the innermost layer, guys, the innermost layer, that is called as the multiform layer, or it is also called as polymorphic layer. It is also called as polymorphic layer. Polymorphic layer. Now, this multiform layer, Hemant Kumar, good evening, beta. This multiform layer, or we call it as the polymorphic layer, we have like various cells, guys. So over here, you can see the horizontal cells of Kahal again, right? You will be watching these horizontal cells of Kahal, right? You will be watching, yes, the granular cells also. You will be watching these granule cells also in this particular layer, means all the cells, right? So it's a layer which is a no mixture of all kinds of cells, and this is continuing below. बेटा ये बाहर वाला पार्ट क्या है? ये cerebral cortex है. Cerebral cortex, it is basically the gray matter, right? So these is basically continuing with the white matter below. It is continuing with the white matter below, right? So that is this multiform layer from outer to inner, guys. You know, from outer to inner. Okay, we have this all gray matter, right? This all 6 layers, the cerebral cortex is gray matter. So this multiform layer or polymorphic layer, it is continuing with this white matter also, right? So that is regarding the histology of this cerebral cortex. Chalo, I hope you guys understood this. So please give me a thumbs up, guys, if you are done with this, if you understood this. Chalo, if you have done this, yes, just give me a thumbs up if this is done, guys. चलो फटाफट से बता दो अगर हो गया है तो. चलो, मनप्रीत सिंह says, sir, you are doing great. Okay बेटा, thank you so much. Thank you so much for ये शकील अहमद, very good बेटा, very good. What about rest, guys? What about rest? बेटा अब हमारा दूसरा टॉपिक क्या है? आज हम लोगों ने पढ़ना है हिस्टोलॉजी ऑफ द सेरिब्रम. सर डन, आपने हिस्टोलॉजी ऑफ सेरिब्रम बता दिया. अब हमने पढ़ना है होमोन्कुलस क्या होता है. व्हाट इज होमोन्कुलस, गाइस? एनीवन कैन रिमेंबर व्हाट इज होमोन्कुलस, गाइस? नो. नो. Anyone can tell me the basic word like what is homunculus? चलो हेडिंग डाल दो. तो हमने हिस्टोलॉजी पढ़ ली पूरी, ठीक है. अब कुछ टॉपिक्स जो रह गए पहले थोड़ा सा उसको कवर कर लेते हैं. नाउ वी आर गोइंग टू स्टार्ट विद समथिंग कॉल्ड एज homunculus. The sensory and the motor homunculus, they basically almost they are same. So please write down homunculus. What is this homunculus, guys? Homunculus in general English it means ghost. ठीक है. It looks like a ghost, guys. So whatever diagram that we are going to draw today, the more worst you make it, the more like better it is. Actually, the more worst you make it, the more better it is. Yeah, tropical topographical distribution on cerebrum. Homunculus का मतलब host होता है. Now, what is this homunculus, guys? As Manpreet told me, कि whatever part is represented in which area of the cerebral hemisphere, which part of the body, the face, the head, and the neck, it is represented in which part of the cerebral hemisphere, guys, right? So yes, we are going to take a coronal section, guys, right now. I am going to take a coronal section now, and I will try to depict, okay, I will try to depict what areas are like, yeah, depicted in which part. So let us just try to see, guys. Now, if I take a coronal section, now when I say coronal section, beta आप लोगों को पता है आगे we have the frontal bone and we have the parietal bone. Between the frontal and the parietal bone, we have this coronal suture. अब यहां से ही अगर मैं कट करूं तो इसको कोरोनल प्लेन बोलेंगे, a plane which divides the body into anterior and posterior part. So I am taking a coronal section. So I'm like cutting my brain like this, right? I'm removing this part and I will just see what is there. Okay. And I will just see what is like there. And if I take a coronal section, guys, now I'm taking a coronal section. Please be very clear with the sections which I take. Coronal section. Now what guys exactly you will look over here. Now I'm just trying to draw only one side of the cerebral hemisphere. So just try to look. Yes. So I'm just trying to draw one surface, and that is exactly the medial surface of the cerebral hemisphere. Please just try to draw along with me. So yes, I am taking only one part, guys, over here, right? You can take just another part also. So yes, now let us say that this is the medial surface of the cerebral hemisphere. And yes, like this is the medial surface and this is the superolateral surface. बीच वाला medial हो गया और side वाला superolateral, superior और lateral part दिखा रहा हूं मैं, ठीक है? Now guys, there is, okay, if this, let us suppose that this is the medial part, right? ये medial हो गया और यहाँ पे हम लोग क्या हो जाएगा lateral, ठीक है? Medial से lateral, medial body का midline ये हो गया, and then we have the lateral part, guys. We have the lateral part, right? Now over here, guys, just try to look at it. That yes, the leg and the thigh. Now let us just try to draw it, guys, so that it's like easy for you as well. So you already know we have this foot, right? Okay, this is the medial side, guys. Okay, the foot, then we have the leg, guys, right? Then we have the, yes, obviously, then we have the thigh, right? So remember, guys, that this part, guys, I'm just trying to like label it for you, that you already know this is the foot. Okay, foot के ऊपर क्या आता है? We have the leg. Okay, you already know from the knee joint to the ankle joint, this is the leg, right? Then guys, you already know, yes, above it we have this thigh. From hip joint to the knee joint, that is the thigh, guys, right? So leg and thigh, basically the all parts, they are represented on the medial side, right? Then basically, guys, comes the trunk part. Now when I say trunk, guys, I am talking about the pelvis, I mean the abdomen part, the thorax part, right? All the parts like over here below the neck, guys, the thorax, abdomen, and the pelvis. So in combinedly it is called as the trunk. Combinedly it is called as the trunk, guys. So yes, we can have the trunk part. Please just try to draw it like this, right? We have this trunk part. So this is the trunk, which will be like more superiorly right over here. This is the trunk. And guys, remember that we have, yes, the head and the neck. Over here we will have the head and the neck. Then you guys already know we have arm. Arm is from shoulder joint to this elbow joint. From elbow joint to wrist joint, we have forearm, right? So we will have like this forearm, and we will have like this big hands, right? So yes. So till now, let us just mark over here. So when I'm saying this head and neck, it is without face, guys. It is without face. I'm not including face over here. It is head and neck. Then over here we will have arm and forearm. And yes, this is the hand. Try to draw the hand bigger, guys. I will tell you why we are drawing the hand bigger. And below it, guys, you already know we have the face, right? We have the face, right? So this is, let us suppose that this is the face, okay? And yes, below the face, guys, below the face you will have the pharynx, larynx, and the tongue. Yes, we have the all the like the neck part, guys. The pharynx, we have the larynx, yes, and the tongue. Okay, so we have this pharynx, larynx, and tongue. Pharynx, larynx, and tongue. Pharynx, larynx, and tongue. Right, so basically I'm drawing this common for both motor and sensory, guys. So you already know. Now see, the hands basically they are receiving the sensory input, okay, and they are receiving the fine sensation. Because of the fine sensation can be felt here in the hands, right? Same into the face, guys, right? The muscles of the face, because of fine movements, again they have like big representation on the cortex, right? So yes. Now that is something you have to draw. I hope everyone has drawn this. Just give me a thumbs up in the chat box, guys, like everyone has drawn this. Yes. Now guys, the medial surface, just try to see over here, the medial surface and some part of the superolateral surface. The medial surface and some part of the superolateral surface, it is supplied by an artery that is called as the medial cerebral, sorry, it is supplied by an artery that is called as the anterior cerebral artery. You can just write it over here. We have the anterior cerebral artery. We have the anterior cerebral artery, right? Now, majority of this artery, I mean, majority of the superolateral surface, okay, majority of the superolateral surface, okay, majority of it, this part of the cerebral hemisphere, it is basically supplied by an artery, and this artery, it is called as the middle cerebral artery. MCA basically stands for the middle cerebral artery, guys. The middle cerebral artery, right? So basically, now, again, guys, if I ask you a question, chalo, let's try to answer this question. If there is any stroke of anterior cerebral artery, which part of the body will be affected? Chalo, फटाफट से answer दो, Sanjana. Yes. Let us try to answer this question. If there is any stroke of the anterior cerebral artery, which part of the body will be affected? I mean, there will be contralateral affection. Obviously, the fibers decussate. So, अगर right anterior cerebral artery में stroke है, so which part of the body will be like paralyzed? Obviously, guys, if you can see, we have the lower limb, the thigh, the leg, and the foot, right? These are the lower limb. So the lower limb muscles, if I say the right anterior cerebral artery is paralyzed, the lower limb muscles on the left side will be paralyzed. I mean, if anterior cerebral artery, if we are having stroke in it, obviously the opposite side will be paralyzed, guys. The opposite side will be paralyzed, right? Now, guys, if there is a middle cerebral artery stroke, Okay, you already know it is supplying the superolateral surface, it is supplying the lateral part also, right? Now there will be contralateral paralysis of the face. अगर राइट मिडल सेरिब्रल आर्टरी का स्ट्रोक है, सो लेफ्ट साइड ऑफ द फेस विल बी गॉन, पैरालिसिस हो जाएगी, राइट? इफ राइट साइड of the middle cerebral arteries like having stroke, obviously then left side of the hand will be gone, right? So basically they are represented like which artery is supplying like which part in the cerebral cortex, and accordingly which part will be affected in the body, which part will be affected in the body. So I hope guys this is clear to each one of you. Just give me a thumbs up in the chat box guys if this is clear to each one of you. चलो फटाफट से एक थम्स अप दे दो अगर ये समझ में आ गया है तो। हाँ Dr. Akhilesh, very good. Homunculus, I have like explained in a very small diagram, guys. Just try to see it. It's like important. Yeah, it's way important, guys. Chalo, Shakil, very good. Yes, Akhilesh, okay, perfect. Now, guys, we have discussed like two topics over here, the homunculus and the histology of the cerebrum. Now, I will be discussing about the transverse section of the cerebral hemisphere. नाउ बेटा ट्रांसवर्स सेक्शन है, तो हमने ब्रेन को इस तरीके से कट किया है, सेरिब्रम को ऐसे कट किया है, ट्रांसवर्स, राइट, बिल्कुल सीधा। अगर सपोज ये ब्रेन है, ठीक है, अगर ये हमारा ब्रेन है, राइट, तो ब्रेन को ऐसे काटेंगे, ट्रांसवर्स कट किया है। तो अब देखो अब कैसा दिखाई देता है। let us just try to see the transverse section of the cerebral hemisphere. चलो इसका भी एक डायग्राम बनाएंगे। यस, ट्रांसवर्स section of cerebral hemisphere. Now guys, try to see over here. Now guys, we have the two cerebral hemispheres. I hope you can imagine, like we have the right cerebral hemisphere and we have the left cerebral hemisphere. Let us just try to see that in between, guys, in the middle of the cerebral hemisphere, we have this corpus callosum. We have already discussed this earlier also, right? We have this corpus callosum, right? And we have the two cerebral hemispheres. Let me just try to draw this. Yes, we have the two cerebral hemispheres, which you can see running like this. We have these two cerebral hemispheres, guys, which you can see over here. Mohammed Salman, good evening, yes. Now, guys, if I ask you, Mohammed Salman, can you answer me, which is the most anterior part of the corpus callosum? ये बीच वाला तो corpus callosum ही है, right? This between part, the middle part, it is corpus callosum, and I am trying to show you a picture, yes, which is like anterior यहाँ पे है, or yes, you will see posterior this side, right? Anterior to posterior, right? So yes, I'm like deleting the arrow. Now, can you tell me which is the most anterior part of the corpus callosum? We have already discussed this, guys. If you want, I'll just go back once and we'll just try to look. Now, if you see the corpus callosum, the most anterior part, guys, I have told you it is genu. It is genu, guys. It is genu. Let me take this green color. It is the genu. It is the most anterior part, and the most posterior part वो क्या है? Splenium, जो पीछे की तरफ है। ये शकील, very good. सबसे आगे क्या आता है? जीनू, और सबसे पीछे क्या है? स्प्लीनियम. So let us just try to mark this in our diagram. Let us just try to mark this in our diagram, guys, that this part will represent the genu and this part will represent the splenium. This part will represent the splenium. So that is we have already discussed, right? Now you guys already know आगे हमारा frontal pole है, दोनों साइड फ्रंटल लोब्स होते हैं, फ्रंटल पोल भी है, और पीछे क्या है? ऑसिपिटल पोल है, पीछे क्या है, ऑसिपिटल पोल है, आगे फ्रंटल पोल है, पीछे क्या ऑसिपिटल पोल है, और बीच में क्या है, कॉर्पस कोलोसम है. Now you already know the distance between, okay, the distance from the frontal pole to genu, it is 4 centimeter, ये मैंने पहले भी बताया था. And distance from the splenium to the occipital pole, it is 6 centimeter. ये तो पता ही है ना कि फ्रंटल पोल से जीनू तक का डिस्टेंस 4 सेंटीमीटर है, एंड फ्रॉम स्प्लीनियम टू द ऑसिपिटल, पीछे ऑसिपिटल पोल होता है, दैट इज अप्रोक्सीमेटली 6 सेंटीमीटर, राइट. नाउ नाउ चलो इतना क्लियर है सब लोगों को, इतना समझ में आ गया किस ओरिएंटेशन में हम डायग्राम को देख रहे हैं. तो हमने ट्रांसफर सेक्शन लिया है, ब्रेन को ऐसे काटा है, ठीक है, ब्रेन को हम लोगों ने ऐसे काटा है, और फिर उसको ऐसे दो सेरेब्रल हेमिस्फीयर्स को प्लेस करें आगे से पीछे पोस्टीरियर तक. चलो फटाफट से एक थम्स अप दे दो अगर ये समझ में आ गया. मोहम्मद सलमान, वेरी गुड वेरी गुड वेरी गुड. चलो शकील, वेरी गुड. नाउ गाइस जस्ट ट्राई टू सी ओवर हियर. हम्म हम्म चलो नाउ नाउ गाइस fibers from the corpus callosum guys. Now let us just try to see. ये corpus callosum है, ये आप लोग को पता ही है, this is the corpus callosum only. corpus callosum है ये, ठीक है, ये तो आई थिंक तुम लोग को पता ही है. कॉर्पस क्लोसम में आगे वाला पार्ट जीनो और पीछे वाला पार्ट क्या होता है, स्प्लीनियम. नाउ व्हाट इज हैपनिंग गाइस, द फाइबर्स इन द कॉर्पस क्लोसम दे आर रनिंग ट्रांसवर्सली, राइट. These fibers are running transversely. Now these fibers, they are running transversely, they are connecting the cerebral hemispheres, right. Now they are connecting, ऊपर कौन सा लोब होता है बेटा, पेराइटल, ठीक है, और कान के ऊपर कौन सा होता है, टेम्पोरल. सो बेसिकली दे आर कनेक्टिंग पेराइटल लोब एंड टेम्पोरल लोब, right. They are connecting parietal lobe and the temporal lobe, right. So that is something you have to remember over here. So these are the fibers which are called as tapetum. Okay, these are given a special name guys, and that is something you have to remember. These are called as tapetum, right. Even some fibers are like going behind also, right. These fibers are going and connecting to, yes, they're connecting the temporal lobes also, right. Now this is called as, yes, tapetum. Tapetum, right. These are called as tapetum. These are like horizontal fibers. Okay, these are, sorry, these transverse fibers, right. They are connecting the cerebral hemisphere, connecting parietal lobe, temporal lobe, right. So these are called as the tapetum guys. These are called as tapetum, including like these fibers which are going back also, right. So these are called as tapetum. Now चलो इतना क्लियर है. Now, some fibers from the frontal lobe, okay, like they will be coming and like will be connecting to the corpus from the genu of the corpus callosum to the frontal lobe, guys. These fibers from the genu to the frontal lobe, from the genu to the frontal lobe, these fibers, beta, these are collectively called as the forceps minor fiber. Forceps minor fiber. Okay, these are called as forceps minor fiber, right. Basically they look like forceps, so yeah, they are connecting anteriorly from the genu of the corpus callosum to the frontal lobe, to the frontal lobe, guys. Right? These are called as forceps minor fibers. Right? Now, there are fibers now, guys. They are actually coming from the splenium, guys. Right? These fibers are coming from the splenium and they are going towards the occipital lobe. Right? They are going towards the occipital lobe, guys. And these fibers, like, they have to travel a longer distance. आगे तो 4 centimeter ये, पीछे 6 centimeter ये. So that's why these fibers are collectively called as forceps major fiber. These are called as the forceps major fiber, right? Forceps major fiber, right? Now, I hope this is clear, guys. Just give me a thumbs up in the chat box if this is clear. As of now, if this is clear, guys, just yes. चलो ये क्लियर हो गया. फटाफट से बताओ, जल्दी से एक थम्स अप दे दो कि ये समझ में आ गया. फोर्सेप्स माइनर क्या है, फोर्सेप्स मेजर क्या है. Now, guys, I am including this transverse section in such a way that I am including one more structure over here, that is called as the lateral. Yes, the lateral ventricle, guys. Yes, Dr. Akhilesh, very good. What about rest? Shakil, very good. Now, guys, I'm including in such a way that I'm also taking the section over here where the lateral ventricle is present. Now, guys, lateral ventricle, I will be like drawing the structure, but remember, guys, the structure of the lateral ventricle, guys, it looks like this, guys. It looks like this. Now, this is the lateral ventricle, guys. This is the lateral ventricle. Now, this section is taken in such a way that only the horns will be like present over here. This is the anterior horn of the lateral ventricle. And this is the posterior horn. This is the posterior horn. This is the body. Okay, this is the body. And the other things I will be like telling you, the tail, lateral ventricle. And guys, posteriorly, we have, yes, this posterior horn of the lateral ventricle. Right? We have this. Yes, this is the posterior horn of the lateral ventricle. So I've taken a section, I've cut in such a way, transverse section is in such a way that we can see only the horns over here. Posterior horn of the lateral ventricle. Now guys, just try to see over here. When the forceps major fiber are running down from the splenium to the occipital lobe, they are producing a bulge in the medial wall of the posterior horn. Okay, they are producing a bulge. They are producing an elevation, guys, over here in the posterior horn. Okay, in the posterior horn. Yes. And this is actually, this structure, it is called as the bulb of the posterior horn. This is called as the bulb of the posterior horn. And this bulb, this elevation, guys, it is produced due to this forceps major fiber. This bulb, or yes, it is produced due to this forceps major fiber. फोर्सेप्स मेजर फाइबर्स स्प्लेनियम से ऑसिपिटल लोब तक जा रहे हैं. जैसे जैसे वो फाइबर्स नीचे जाते हैं पीछे ऑसिपिटल लोब तक, वो इस पोस्टीरियर हॉर्न ऑफ लेटरल वेंट्रिकल पर एक बल्ज, एक चढ़ाई, एक एलिवेशन प्रोड्यूस करते हैं. उसको हम लोग बल्ब ऑफ पोस्टीरियर हॉर्न बोलते हैं. बल्ब ऑफ पोस्टीरियर हॉर्न बोलते हैं. जस्ट गिव मी अ थम्स अप गाइस अगर तुम्हें ये चीज समझ में आ गई है तो. राइट? चलो फटाफट से बताओ अगर ये चीज समझ में आ गई है तुम लोगों को तो। हम्म। हम्म। चलो संजना। हम्म। शकील। चलो। ठीक है, लेटर वेंट्रिकल डिस्कस करेंगे, नो नीड टू वरी, विल डिस्कस द पार्ट्स इन एवरीथिंग, एब्सोल्युटली नो नीड टू वरी। यस डॉक्टर अखिलेश, ओके, perfect, perfect beta. Now guys, if I just see what is actually the tapetum guys. Now tapetum का मतलब क्या होता है? Now tapetum are those fibers which is coming from the corpus callosum, right? These are those fibers which are coming from the corpus callosum. Okay, ये वो fibers है which are not intersected by corona radiata. मैंने कल आपको बताया था कि वी हैव लाइक सुपीरियर लॉन्गिट्यूडनल fasciculus एंड द फ्रंटल ऑसिपिटल fasciculus विच वर इंटरसेक्टेड बाय कोरोना रेडिएटा, क्योंकि कोरोना रेडिएटा को नीचे से ऊपर जाना है सेरेब्रल कॉर्टेक्स तक, तो वो अपना एक गैप जो होता है सुपीरियर लॉन्गिट्यूडनल fasciculus और फ्रंटो ऑसिपिटल fasciculus में, वो एक गैप प्रोड्यूस करती है, एक इंटरसेक्शन प्रोड्यूस करती है और ऊपर चली जाती है. बट दिस टेपेटम हैज अ स्पेशल फीचर गाइस, इट इज नॉट इंटरसेक्टेड बाय दिस कोरोना रेडिएटा, right? So that is something you have to remember over here, right? You already know corpus callosum, it is running transversely guys, right? It is running transversely. So tapetum fibers are like more yeah, they are running like transversely guys, downward also, which you can see over here. They are running like downward also over here, right? They are running downward also, and they're not intersected by this internal capsule, right? So these fibers, like, they look more whitish in appearance. Okay, if you take a fresh section of this fibers guys, right, you will see a shiny appearance guys. Okay, and that is guys, that is something which is the lightning white appearance. That's why we call it as tapetum. That is why we call it as tapetum guys, right? चलो इतना क्लियर है. यस, इतना क्लियर है guys तुम लोगों को. So where is this internal capsule over here guys? If you just try to see where is this internal capsule, now this internal capsule, it is basically located over here. This is the internal capsule guys, which you will be finding located over here. Now this is the internal capsule which will be like over here guys, and we are now going to discuss like some more parts with respect to this internal capsule. So I'm like just taking the section out guys, the corpus callosum, right? This internal capsule out, right? So I'm like taking the section out. Yes, it is not over here exactly. Yeah, let me just draw like below it. Yeah, below the interior horn guys. Yes, you will like find it over here. So this is the internal capsule guys, internal capsule. So let us just try to discuss some more relations in the transverse section. I'm just taking this part out, the corpus callosum, internal capsule, and what guys you will see over here, what else structures we will find over here. Let us just try to appreciate over here. Now I'm taking this corpus callosum. Okay, again this is a transverse section guys, and you already know this is the corpus callosum, and from anterior to posterior, this part it is the genu, and this part it is the splenium. This part it is the splenium. Genu, it is the most anterior part. Yes, genu, it is the most anterior part of the corpus callosum, and splenium, it is the most this posterior part of the corpus callosum, right? So that is yes, you already know this is nothing but the corpus callosum, right? Now guys, just try to look over here. We have this structure. Yes, that is called as, yes, the internal capsule. Yes, this is called as the internal capsule guys. This is called as the internal capsule. Now this structure which I'm drawing right now, yes, this is the internal capsule. Now guys, between the corpus callosum and the internal capsule, we have the caudate nucleus which is present over here. And remember specifically, it is the head of the caudate nucleus which is present over here, right? We have this structure and this is called as the head of the caudate nucleus. Head of the caudate nucleus. And between the corpus callosum, on the downside, guys, you will see the structure which we call as thalamus. Right? This is called as the thalamus. The thalamus, guys. Right? This is called as thalamus. Right? So yes. Again, guys, literally just try to see, guys, we are going from, let us suppose this is the midline of the body. You already know the corpus callosum, it is in the like the midline, right? Now we are going from medial to lateral, guys, medial to lateral over here. And guys, you will find that another okay another structure which you can just see over here in this part, guys. I will be discussing the internal capsule in detail, no need to worry. This structure, it is called as the lentiform nucleus. This is called as the lentiform nucleus. Now, these all three things, the head of the caudate nucleus, the thalamus, and the lentiform nucleus, these all are this gray matter thing, guys. These all are these gray matter things, right? Let me just highlight for you people. So this is the, yes, the head of the caudate nucleus. We have the thalamus, right? We have this lentiform nucleus. So this is nothing but the gray matter, right, which is present in the section, guys. I've just taken that part out. I've taken this part out, okay, this part out entirely, and I'm just trying to show what is present from medial to lateral, right? So that is something you already know, guys, right? Internal capsule and this corpus callosum, guys, these are both the white matter, right? These are both the white matter. So I'm representing the white matter in like one this one color, that is the yellow one over here. So this internal capsule and the corpus callosum, these are the white matter things. These are the white matter things, right? Now, most lateral in this section, guys, you will be watching, okay? Okay. There is a hidden lobe, guys, right? Yes. More laterally, yes. There is a hidden lobe over here. Now, okay, before that lobe, guys, just try to appreciate that another like piece of gray matter, a thin gray matter, which is like lateral to the lentiform nucleus. As of now, the function of this is not very well appreciated, but you will see this thin band or thin gray matter, which you can see just lateral to lentiform nucleus, and this is called as colostrum, and this is called as colostrum. Yes, this is called as colostrum. This is called as colostrum. So this is again the gray matter thing, guys. This is again the gray matter thing which you will appreciate just lateral to the lentiform nucleus, for which the function is not exactly known till date, and that is nothing but the colostrum, guys. Yes, that is the colostrum, right? That is the colostrum. Okay. Now, going more laterally, guys, you will be like watching one hidden lobe, okay? And that hidden lobe, guys, it is called as, yes, that is called as insula, or it is also called as insulum, or it is also called as the island of Riehl. Island of Riehl, like more laterally, guys, you will be having this. Yes. More laterally, you will be like having this island of Riehl over here. right? So this is the island of real. Yes, this is the island of real, guys. That is the insulum, right? So yes. Now, until unless like we open the Sylvian sulcus, we'll not be able to see this, right? So that is the white matter, right? Between the claustrum and okay. Now let me just first try to mention this that this is the one that is called as the insulum or the insula. This is the insula, guys. This is the insula, right? Or it is also called as the island of real. Island of real. Island of real, guys. Insula or the island of real, right? So, yes. So I hope this is clear, guys. Just give me a thumbs up in the chat box. Now, guys, in between this claustrum and the lentiform nucleus, another white, yes, yes, this white matter bundle which you can see over here. These two. One, it is called as the external capsule, and the most outer one, the most lateral one, guys, it is called as the extreme capsule. Yes. So that is again the relations from the medial to the lateral in relation to the internal capsule, guys, right? So yes, the corpus callosum, internal capsule, lentiform nucleus, and how does it go, like all the sections from gray matter and white matter, right? Over here in the transverse section, guys, right? Okay, so yes, that is something which you have to know. Internal capsule, guys, remember, like it is a white matter bundle. Okay, it is a white matter bundle, right? Because they are capsulating the basal ganglia. Now, when you see white matter inside the basal ganglia, internally, like we call it as the internal capsule. Now, when you see watching this outside the internal capsule, this white matter bundle will be like the external capsule, which is covering the basal ganglia from outside, right? It is covering the basal ganglia from outside. So that is something you have to remember, guys. So I hope this is clear, everyone. Just give me a thumbs up, guys, if this is clear. चलो ये clear हो गया तो we will be discussing the internal capsule now. Yes, we have already discussed, guys, the three topics. Yes, the homunculus, the transverse section, yes, and the histology. I'm now going to discuss the most important topic, that is the lateral. Oh, okay, the lateral ventricle and the third ventricle, guys. The lateral ventricle and the third ventricle. Okay. चलो ये क्लियर हो गया सब लोगों को? फटाफट से एक थम्स अप दे दो। अखिलेश, वेरी गुड अखिलेश, यस। इफ इट इज क्लियर जस्ट गिव मी अ थम्स अप इन द चैट बॉक्स। चलो, now let us just try to see the internal capsule. Okay, I have discussed in, yeah, the section over here. We have a white matter bundle over here. Sure. Please reply in the chat box, guys, if you are there alive attending the session. Please just try to reply in the chat box as well. Okay, are you guys there? Hmm. Chalo. Kiran, I'm good. I'm good. Yes. Akhilesh. Okay. 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 So we are going to discuss the internal capsule, guys. Yes. So before starting with the internal capsule, guys, let me know if you are all alive. Dr. Akhilesh, Kiran. Okay. What about rest, guys? Hmm. Now, guys, coming on to the internal capsule, a very small topic that I have to discuss before, like, I begin with any other thing, right? Before I begin with any other thing. So, yes, internal capsule. Now, what is this internal capsule, guys? What is this internal capsule? Now, guys, I've already told you this internal capsule. It is a broad lamina. What is the definition, guys? It is a broad lamina of white matter. It is a broad lamina of the white matter, guys. It is a broad lamina of the white matter. Okay. Now, guys, you already know this internal capsule. It is basically made of up of the projection fibers. The fibers basically coming from the cerebral cortex. Okay, the fibers coming from the thalamus, guys, right? So we have ascending and descending fibers, guys, right over here. Now, guys, as we have already discussed, if I just take a transverse section, guys, if I take a transverse section, you already know we have just seen this is, yes, we have like a bent shaped form like this, right? So that is the internal capsule. Now this internal capsule, guys, as you have just seen over here, as you have just seen over here, कि medially क्या present है? Lentiform nucleus. और laterally, sorry, laterally क्या present है? Lentiform nucleus. और medially क्या present है? Corpus callosum, right? So basically, yes, अगर इसमें देखा जाए तो I can just simply draw over here, guys, कि we have this lentiform nucleus over here, right? We have this lentiform nucleus which is lateral to this lentiform nucleus, and medially we have like two structures, guys. We have just discussed, we have the head of caudate nucleus, right? We have the head of the caudate nucleus, and we also have the thalamus. We also have the thalamus, right? We also have the thalamus, right? So now remember, guys, it is like a folded lamina, okay, which is like a V shaped. If you just talk about certain points, guys, you should be remember that it is medial to lentiform nucleus. Okay, this is the internal capsule, guys, right? Or yes, it is like lateral to this head of caudate and thalamus. Okay, सो देखो ऑब्वियसली बात है कि अगर ये मिड लाइन है और ये लेटरल है तो लेंटिफॉर्म के मिडिली क्या प्रेजेंट है इंटरनल कैप्सूल हेड ऑफ कॉर्डेट और थैलेमस के लिटरली क्या प्रेजेंट है इंटरनल कैप्सूल राइट सो रिमेंबर गाइस दैट yes if we just talk about the site guys so it is yes it is medial to lentiform nucleus and it is lateral to head of caudate nucleus and thalamus and thalamus right and thalamus now if we talk about the shape guys you already know it is a folded lamina it is a folded lamina of the white matter okay And this folded lamina, it is V-shaped. You can easily appreciate it is V-shaped, guys, in transverse section. Remember, we are taking a transverse section. It is V-shaped in transverse section, right? It is V-shaped in transverse section. Yes, Akhilesh, you are right. It is V-shaped in the transverse section. Okay, and this concavity, okay, is ये जो concave वाला part है बेटा, अगर देखोगे तो ये lateral है, ये lateral है ना, its concavity is directed laterally. Its concavity, it is directed laterally, guys. Now, let us just talk about the parts of this lentiform nucleus. Let us talk about the, okay, not lentiform nucleus, parts of the internal capsule. This is guys, you already know, this is the internal capsule. Internal capsule. So we are going to talk about the parts of internal capsule now. Internal capsule. Now, what are the parts of this internal capsule, guys? We have discussed the side, we have discussed the shape. Now coming on to the parts of the internal capsule. Now guys, we have a very short anterior. देखो आगे वाला हिस्सा ये है और पीछे ये होगा, right? So anterior to posterior. So we have a very short, guys. Remember this very short anterior limb. Okay, this is the very short anterior limb, right? It is between the head of the caudate nucleus. Medial पे head of caudate nucleus है और lateral side पे क्या है? Lentiform nucleus. So बीच में क्या आ जाएगा? This is the anterior limb, guys. This is the anterior limb. This is the anterior limb. Similarly, guys, similarly, we have, yes, the posterior limb also. Okay, we have a posterior limb also. This structure, it is the posterior limb of the internal capsule. Posterior limb of the internal capsule, right? This is the internal capsule. So anterior limb hai. We also have this posterior limb, right? If you can just appreciate. Now this posterior limb, it is between the thalamus and the lentiform nucleus. It is between the thalamus. Yes, Dr. Akhilesh, you're right. It is between the thalamus and the lentiform nucleus. Right? It is between the thalamus and the lentiform nucleus. Now there is apex over here, guys. This is the apex, and this apex, remember guys, the area which I'm shading over here, this is called as the genu of the internal capsule. हमने बार-बार spinal cord में बोला था ना, genu of the internal capsule, genu of the internal capsule. So this is exactly the genu, guys, or this is also called as the apex of, yes, it is also called as apex of internal capsule. This green colored area, apex of internal capsule. So it is the angular junction, guys, which you can see between the anterior limb and the posterior limb, right? And lies between the head of the caudate nucleus only. It's just like over here only, and the, okay, and the thalamus posteriorly. So between the head and between the thalamus, this is the genome or the apex of this internal capsule, right? Now guys, we have a part which is like located very much back, okay? Yes, this part of the internal capsule, it is called as the retro lentiform part, which is like back to the lentiform nucleus. Lentiform nucleus के पीछे, तो इसलिए internal capsule का ये वाला जो part है, it is called as the retro lentiform part. It is behind the lentiform nucleus, guys. Remember, it is behind the lentiform nucleus. Behind the lentiform nucleus. Now there is one more part. There is one more part, guys, which we cannot see in this section. Which we cannot see in this section, which is below this. Okay, which is below the lentiform nucleus. Lentiform nucleus के बिल्कुल नीचे है वो. Internal capsule का ही part है, which is like below this. Right? I'm try to draw it dotted, guys. Yes, this part, which is below, नीचे है. इस section में दिखाना possible नहीं है क्योंकि वो नीचे है. And anything which is down, guys, you already know it is sub. Below the lentiform, it is sublentiform part. Sublentiform part of the internal capsule. Sublentiform part of the internal capsule. So guys, remember, we have like anterior limb, genu or the apex of the internal capsule, posterior limb, sublentiform part, and retrolentiform part. Retrolentiform part. So just give me a thumbs up, guys, ki if you understood the parts of the internal capsule clearly. If the parts of the internal capsule is done, just give me a thumbs up, guys, in the chat box. If the parts of the internal capsule is done. Dr. Akhilesh, very good. Hmm. Now, we will be discussing the tracks which are passing. अब वही internal capsule है जो मैं हमेशा बनाता था और इसी internal capsule से मैंने आप लोग को दिखाया there are certain fibers going up to the cerebral cortex and certain fibers going down, and they are all passing through this internal capsule. They are all passing through this internal capsule. Now we are going to see what are the projection fibers now which are passing through this internal capsule. इससे ऊपर उठ के कौन सी जा रही है और इससे फाइबर्स नीचे कौन सी जा रही है. सो यस, वी आर जस्ट गोइंग टू सी कि इससे क्या क्या पास होता है ऊपर और नीचे दोनों. So write down, we have the types of projection fibers. Type of projection fibers passing through internal capsule. Passing through internal capsule. Right? Types of projection fibers passing through the internal capsule. Now, it can be the two tracks, guys, that we have already discussed. It is the ascending tract. It is the ascending tract, guys. Okay, that is carrying all the sensory part, right? Now, this ascending tract, it is basically coming from the thalamus. It is coming from the thalamus, right? So these are also called as thalamic radiations. These are also called as thalamic radiations. And we also have the descending tracts, right? We also have the descending tracts, right? The frontopontine fibers, corticobulbar fibers, corticospinal part, right? All these parts, right? The descending tracts. So we'll be discussing it one by one. We will be discussing it one by one. Now, guys, let us first discuss. Let us suppose if this is the thalamus. If this is a thalamus, right? And behind the thalamus, now during the development, guys, during the development, initially, basically, these parts were like combined, but during the development of this like thalamus, these parts are separated out. This is nothing but this is called as, yes, the, okay, medial geniculate body. And the lateral geniculate body. Yes, the lateral geniculate body. Now, guys, from the thalamus, now we are discussing this ascending tracts over here. We are discussing the ascending tracts which will be passing through this no internal capsule. Now, before that, guys, just try to see over here. Now, from the thalamus, there are some parts, guys, which will be coming. Yes. From the thalamus, right? They're coming from the anterior part of the thalamus, okay? Anterior and medial thalamic nucleus, right? And they're going to the frontal lobe. We have this frontal lobe in front, right? So basically these fibers, okay, which are like going from the anterior and the medial nucleus of the thalamus to the frontal lobe, guys. This is called as, yes, this is called as the anterior thalamic radiations. Anterior thalamic radiation. So basically, what is an anterior thalamic radiation? Basically from anterior and medial. I will be discussing the thalamus, no need to worry. Thalamic nuclei to frontal lobe. So basically they are these fibers, basically The ascending tract fibers, the sensory fibers, they are coming from the thalamus, the anterior part of the thalamus, the anterior nuclei and the medial nuclei of the thalamus, and going to which lobe? The frontal lobe. So these are called as anterior thalamic radiations. Now, there are radiations or the sensory radiation, guys. I can simply say the sensory radiations which are going above. Now, when I say above, guys, you already know, yes, we have the two nucleus, guys. Yeah, we have the two nucleus, posterolateral ventral nucleus and posteromedial ventral nucleus. So basically, yeah, these radiations, basically, these are called as, let us just try to write the names first. These are called as superior, or these are all called as thalamic. Superior thalamic or sensory radiations. Sensory radiations. Now, guys, just try to remember over here. Just try to remember over here. These radiations basically are coming from which part of the thalamus? They're coming from posterolateral ventral nucleus and posteromedial ventral nucleus. Posterolateral ventral nucleus, posteromedial ventral nucleus of thalamus. I will be discussing this, guys, right? To the sensory area in central gyrus. To the sensory area in the central gyrus. Okay, the sensory radiation like passes in the posterior half of the posterior limb. I will be like discussing like which part of the internal capsule they are passing in. First, you should know the radiations, guys, where they are coming from, right? Now we have two radiations, guys. The one which is coming from the lateral geniculate body. Okay, the one which is coming from the lateral geniculate body. And guys, you already know it is the visual sensory area. Right? So these radiations, guys. Oh, yes. Now these radiations, guys, remember they are going from, yeah, the lateral geniculate body to the visual sensory area in the occipital lobe. So these radiations are called as the optic radiations. Optic radiations. Now they are from the lateral geniculate body, and they are going to the visual sensory area, in occipital lobe. The visual sensory area in the occipital lobe. The visual sensory area in the occipital lobe. We also have the auditory radiation, guys. We have the auditory radiations which are coming from the medial geniculate body. And guys, remember, it is going to the temporal lobe. Temporal lobe नीचे की तरफ है. ठीक है, temporal lobe is down. Thalamus ऊपर है. So basically, it is these fibers will be going down like this. And this is like called as the auditory radiations. Auditory radiations, guys. And remember, these auditory radiations, they come from the medial geniculate body, right? They come from the medial geniculate body to auditory sensory area, in temporal lobe. Temporal lobe. To auditory sensory area in the temporal lobe, guys. So I hope this is clear. And guys, this medial geniculate body, lateral geniculate body, these are all parts of the metathalamus. I will be discussing the metathalamus in detail. So no need to worry about this. So these are the ascending fibers that you guys already know, right? You guys already know. Now, now if I just wanted to tell you like, okay. Now let us just try to, yeah, let us just try to see which part of the internal capsule like these all will be there. These all radiations will be there, right? I will be drawing one diagram, guys, again for the internal capsule, and we will see, yes, which part like which ascending tract like will be passing through this, right? This is, I think you already know, this is the anterior limb, right? We have the genu posterior limb, right? The retrolentiform nucleus, and below we have the sublentiform part, the retrolentiform part and the sublentiform part, right? This is something you already know, and I am showing you the ascending tracks, right? The ascending tracks in internal capsule passing through internal capsule. Now, guys, you already know this anterior thalamic radiations. Again, the name, guys, the very first one which we have discussed, the anterior thalamic radiations, they will be passing through the anterior limb only, right? They will be passing through the anterior limb only. So yes, these fibers will be like passing from the anterior limb only. This is nothing but the anterior thalamic radiations. Anterior thalamic radiations. From which part of the internal capsule? It is the anterior limb. Anterior limb of the internal capsule. They will be passing through. Right? Now, guys, coming on to the genu, guys, right? Okay. Now, this superior thalamic radiations, right? The superior one which I have shown you guys, the superior thalamic radiation or the sensory radiations. They, guys, like in some books, they have written only posterior limb, but just as of now, remember, guys, they are also like passing from the genu as well, right? They are also passing from the genu and the posterior limb. They're covering the maximum area over here. So remember, these are nothing but the superior thalamic radiation, thalamic radiations, or I can simply say the sensory radiation. They are passing from the genu plus posterior limb of internal capsule. Genu plus posterior limb of the internal capsule, right? Apart from that, guys, if you just want to see the optic radiations, right? The optic radiations, or now the posterior thalamic radiations, or guys, okay, I will say the optic radiations, or the, yeah, the posterior thalamic radiation, obviously, which will be passing from the posterior part only. अब guys, ये वाले जो radiations है, optic radiation, they are going towards which lobe? Occipital lobe. Occipital lobe तो posterior ही है. So this optic radiations, I can also say it as the posterior thalamic radiation. I can also say it as posterior thalamic radiation, because ये lateral geniculate body से भी पीछे कहाँ जा रहे हैं? Occipital lobe में. So these optic radiations will be passing through the most posterior part of the, yes, most posterior part over here, and that is the retrolentiform part. So these are nothing but the optic radiations, or I can simply say, yeah, the posterior thalamic radiations. The posterior thalamic radiations, right? So they are basically passing from this retrolentiform part, right? And guys, again, sublentiform again makes a sense, guys. The auditory part which has go to temporal lobe, guys. Temporal lobe नीचे है, internal capsule ऊपर है, तो ऊपर से नीचे जाने के लिए नीचे वाला जो पार्ट है इंटरनल कैप्सूल का, दैट इज सबलेंटिफॉर्म, जो बिल्कुल नीचे है उसके. अगेन इस सेक्शन में दिखाना मुश्किल है, बट यू ऑलरेडी नो दे विल बी पासिंग डाउन, yes, from the sublentiform part, and these are nothing but the auditory radiations. Auditory radiations, and they pass from like which part? That is the sublentiform part. Sublentiform part of internal capsule. Of internal capsule. So that is about the ascending track, guys. Just give me a thumbs up in the chat box if this is clear to each one of you. Just give me a thumbs up in the chat box if this is clear to each one of you. चलो फटाफट से एक थम्स अप दे दो गाइस अगर ये समझ में आ गया तो। डिसेंडिंग ट्रैक्स की भी बात कर लेते हैं। तो असेंडिंग ट्रैक्स का तो समझ में आ गया। अब डिसेंडिंग ट्रैक्स, अखिलेश सिंह, वेरी गुड बेटा। व्हाट अबाउट रेस्ट, अदर्स आर अलाइव? बाकी सब जिंदा हो तो प्लीज रिप्लाई। Internal capsule, we have discussed the site, we have discussed the shape, we have discussed the parts, we have discussed the types of projection, ascending tracks, how like which tracks are there and how they're passing from the internal capsule, and coming on to the descending tracks. Yes, coming on to the descending tracks, guys. Descending tracks of the internal capsule. सो गए सब यार, आज तो इतना लेट भी नहीं हुआ, अभी तो 10 ही बजे है। आई मीन कितना टाइम हो रहा होगा यार वहां पे, मैं तो अभी फॉरेन में हूँ तो मुझे पता नहीं है। 11 बज रहे होंगे शायद। कोई नहीं, 1 घंटा और पढ़ेंगे यार, थोड़ा बहुत 2 वेंट्रिकल्स और पढ़नी है, ठीक है। चल, let us discuss the descending tracks also. And guys, remember the descending tracks, basically we have other fibers. Okay, let us just try to see over here, guys. Again, the internal capsule and which part is passing from which part of the internal capsule, we will just try to see over here, right? So yes, now guys, we have something called as, okay, the descending tracks. First, guys, you have to remember we have the corticopontine fibers. Corticopontine fibers. Okay, the corticopontine fibers are again of 4 types, guys. Again of 4 types. You already know we have coming from the frontal lobe to the pons, right? Frontopontine fibers, right? We have, yes, paritopontine fibers. We have temporopontine fibers. We have occipitopontine fibers. Occipitopontine fibers. Apart from that, guys, we also have the corticonuclear tract. Corticonuclear tracts. Basically, these are the upper motor neuron of cranial nerves, right? These are the upper motor neuron of cranial nerves. Right? And guys, we have pyramidal tract also. Pyramidal tract, these are the corticospinal tracts that we have already discussed. The corticospinal tract. Corticospinal tract. Now guys, now remember guys, the frontopontine fibers will come from the anterior limb, right? Okay. The frontopontine fibers, okay, it will be passing from all the 3 limbs. You already know this is the anterior limb, genu, posterior limb, yes, the retrolentiform part and the sublentiform part, right? We already know about this. So basically okay, let us just try to, I'm just trying to show it. The frontopontine fibers will be coming from all the 3 parts over here. The anterior limb also, genu also, and posterior limb also. So frontopontine from anterior limb, genu and posterior limb. तीनों से pass करती है, right? Paritopontine and occipitopontine. Okay, paritopontine and occipitopontine, they pass from the retrolentiform part. Okay, so these are frontopontine. But the ones which are passing from the retrolentiform part, remember guys, this retrolentiform part, we have, yes, remember paritopontine and occipitopontine. So they are basically these two. They are passing from the retrolentiform part. They are passing from the retrolentiform part, right? And guys, one more important one, the temporopontine, basically coming from the temporal lobe to the pons, guys, these are passing from this sublentiform. Temporal niche hai, so obviously this is temporopontine, that is sublentiform. Sublentiform. So that is status you have to remember over here, right? Now, guys, remember the corticonuclear. Okay, the corticonuclear or the corticobulbar. The corticonuclear, or also called as the corticobulbar, basically the upper motor neurons of all the cranial nerves, it is passing through this genu, right? So it is yes, nuclear or corticobulbar, corticonuclear, corticobulbar, right? And yes, the corticospinal tract, guys, the corticospinal tract, right? It will be passing through the posterior limb. And remember, guys, it is only the anterior part of the posterior limb. Pura ka pura posterior limb nahi hai. Only the anterior part of the posterior limb. So this pyramidal tract or the corticospinal tract, okay, so this is passing through, yes, the anterior two-third of posterior limb. Anterior two-third of the posterior limb. Anterior two-third of the posterior limb. इससे क्या पास करता है? These pyramidal tracts, right? So that is about the internal capsule. Again, guys, remember the blood supply also of the internal capsule. Again, that is like you can just notice, guys. Anterior part of the anterior limb is supplied by the anterior cerebral artery. Okay, the anterior part of the anterior limb, it is supplied by the anterior cerebral artery. Posterior limb, okay, okay, if I just wanted to like tell you the blood supply of internal capsule in short, blood supply of the internal capsule. Blood supply of the internal capsule, guys. Remember, let us suppose that this is the internal capsule. This is the anterior limb, genu, posterior limb, retrolentiform part, and we have sublentiform part. Now, the anterior part of the anterior limb, सबसे आगे वाला हिस्सा, it is supplied by an artery over here that is called as the anterior cerebral artery. Anterior cerebral artery, right? Now, the posterior part of the anterior limb का पीछे वाला हिस्सा, okay, plus the genu, right? Plus the genu, guys, and plus the posterior limb. These all three are supplied by the middle cerebral artery. The middle cerebral artery. The middle cerebral artery. Okay, so yes, the retro and this sublentiform part, they are supplied by the anterior choroidal artery. Okay, anterior choroidal artery. And remember, guys, these are branches of internal carotid artery. Branches of internal carotid artery. So basically, they are supplying the retrolentiform and the sublentiform part. Retrolentiform and the sublentiform part. So that is about this structure, guys, right? That is the internal capsule. That is the internal capsule, guys, right? So we have discussed internal capsule. We have discussed the transverse section of cerebral hemisphere. We have discussed homunculus. We have discussed the cerebral cortex histology. Now I will be discussing about the lateral ventricle and the third ventricle. So yes, just give me a thumbs up, guys. Yes, if you are like awake. Yeah. Let us just try to complete the topic, guys, also. Yes, we are going to discuss the lateral and the third ventricle. चलो Very good. Dr. Akhilesh, very good. Very good. What about rest, guys? Others alive? Yes. चलो बाकी सब फटाफट से एक thumbs up दे दो. Let us just try to discuss the other parts also. Yes. हम्म. चलो बाकी सब alive हैं. हम्म. चलो we are going to start with the lateral ventricle also. Yes. Hmm. Now guys, let us just try to understand the lateral ventricle now. Yes. Now we are going to start with the lateral ventricle, beta. Now guys, the lateral ventricle, it is the cavity which is now present in each cerebral hemisphere. हमारे पास दो cerebral hemisphere थे. उसकी जो cavity होती है, उसको हम लोग क्या बोलते हैं? Lateral ventricles. And guys, remember there are two lateral ventricles. One in the right cerebral and other one in the, yes, the left cerebral hemisphere. Right? So basically, what is the site, guys? It is the cavity present in each cerebral hemisphere. It is the cavity present in the each cerebral hemisphere, guys. It is the cavity present in each cerebral hemisphere, right? Even they ask you about the lining, guys. First, let us just discuss about the lining. It is lined by ependyma, right? It is lined by ependyma. Ependyma basically means the ciliated cuboidal epithelium. Ciliated cuboidal epithelium, right? It is lined by ependyma, that is the ciliated cuboidal epithelium, right? Now, guys, the third thing that you have to know about the lateral ventricle, it is communications. Communications. Now, these lateral ventricles, they basically communicate to the third ventricle. So these are the lateral ventricles, and they communicate to the third ventricle, guys, through the interventricular foramen. इसको हम लोग क्या बोलते हैं? Interventricular foramen. Remember beta, lateral ventricles communicate to third ventricle via interventricular foramen. Okay, so basically the lateral ventricles, they communicate via interventricular foramen to which ventricle? That is the third ventricle. Third ventricle, guys. It communicates to the third ventricle, guys, right, with the help of interventricular foramen, right, which lies in the anterior part of the medial wall of the lateral ventricle. So that is okay. Now, coming on to the shapes and the part. Okay, so remember, guys, what are the shapes and the parts? Let us just try to write it over here. What are the shapes? Okay, the shape and the parts. The shapes and the parts. We have just drawn a lateral ventricle, guys, and you guys already know. Yes. So this is a lateral ventricle. Yes, this is the lateral ventricle, guys. We have just shown this, right? Now, guys, remember we have the anterior horn over here. We have the anterior horn. Yes, guys, the shape over here, it is crescentric shape, guys. Okay, it is crescentric shaped, right? It is elongated. It is elongated, crescentric shaped, right? It consists of body and three horns. It consists of body and three horns. We have the anterior horn. We have the elongated part that is called as the body. Then we have the posterior horn, and we have the inferior horn. We have the inferior horn. So we have three horns: anterior horn, posterior horn, and the inferior horn, and we have the elongated part that is called as the body. The body, it is basically the central part, guys, right? Now the body basically lies in the parietal lobe. The body basically lies in the parietal lobe. The anterior horn, it is extending to the frontal lobe. The posterior horn, it is basically extending to the occipital lobe. And the inferior horn, it is extending up till the temporal lobe. Temporal lobe. So that is the shape, the crescentric, elongated crescentric shaped, and the parts, that is body and the three horns, anterior, posterior, inferior. Anterior आगे तक extend करता है, like frontal lobe तक. पोस्टीरियर हॉर्न पीछे ऑसिपिटल लोब तक, नीचे वाला टेम्पोरल तक एक्सटेंड करता है, और बीच वाला पेराइटल के नीचे हमें क्या मिलेगा, दैट इज द बॉडी वाला पार्ट, राइट? Is it clear, everyone? So the shapes and parts, I think it is clear. The shapes and parts, I think it is clear, guys. Now let us talk about the boundaries and relations, guys. The boundaries and relation. So remember, guys, that yes, the third ventricle. Okay, let me just tell you one more thing. The third ventricle basically communicates to fourth ventricle via cerebral aqueduct. Okay, cerebral aqueduct. Okay, it is also called as the aqueduct of Sylvius. And fourth ventricle, it is basically mainly located behind the pons and the cerebellum that you guys already know. Over here, guys, the lateral ventricles. The lateral ventricle, guys, you already know it is in the cavity. It is located in the cerebrum. Okay, ये जो हमारी cerebral hemispheres होते हैं, this is basically located in the cerebrum. So remember, guys, it is the cavity of the, yes, diencephalon, right? It is the cavity. So it is in the cavity of the diencephalon, guys. Okay, it's cavity of diencephalon. Diencephalon, you already know, basically it is the cerebrum part. It is the cerebrum part, right? The lateral ventricle, it is located in the cerebrum, so it is the cavity of the diencephalon. Third ventricle, beta, remember it is located in the cavity of the thalamus, right? It's situated in the thalamus, guys. So it is the cavity of diencephalon. Diencephalon. राइट, थर्ड वेंट्रिकल डायनसेफेलॉन, लेटरल वेंट्रिकल्स टीलेंसेफेलॉन सेरिब्रम में, और थर्ड वेंट्रिकल कहाँ पे देखने को मिलेगा, थैलेमस में. थैलेमस में. So that is the basic thing that you have to remember, guys. That is the basic thing you have to remember over here. Now, guys, to study the okay. Now, lateral ventricle, it is present in both the cerebral hemispheres. So if I just take a sagittal section, guys, if I cut it from middle, like I cannot appreciate the boundaries, guys. To study the boundaries of the lateral ventricle, guys, I have to take a coronal section of the brain. ब्रेन को आगे से काटूंगा, ठीक है, पार्ट हटाऊंगा, फिर मुझे अच्छे से दिखाई देगा, ठीक है, फिर मुझे अच्छे से दिखाई देगा, राइट, कि कैसा दिखता है, हाउ द बाउंड्री इट इज देयर, राइट. Now if we take a coronal section of the brain, coronal section of the brain, and remember that is something very, very important, guys. Okay, now what we will see, guys, that the roof of this, what we say, the lateral ventricle, we are talking about the boundaries of lateral ventricle. Now the roof of the lateral ventricle, the roof of the lateral ventricle, guys, remember that it is formed by corpus callosum. ऊपर क्या प्रेजेंट है? कॉर्पस केलोसम, द रूफ। ठीक है, इसके ऊपर क्या प्रेजेंट होगा? कॉर्पस केलोसम। वी हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड द व्हाइट मैटर बंडल, कॉर्पस लैसम, राइट? नाउ now guys, in the medial part, guys, in the medial part, we will have a thin septum, guys. We will have a thin septum that is called as septum pellucidum. It is called as septum pellucidum, the medial wall. It is formed by the septum pellucidum. Now, what is this pellucidum, guys? Pellucidum का मतलब होता है translucent. Okay, translucent septum है. ठीक है, बहुत ही पतला सा septum देखने को मिलता है बीच में. That forms the medial wall. That is why it is called as septum pellucidum. It is basically translucent. Translucent, guys. Right? Along with that, in the lower edge of this septum pellucidum, basically you can see the columns of the fornix. We can see the columns of fornix. मैंने बताया था ना, पीछे से आगे की तरफ आ रहे हैं. They're coming from like this, guys, right? They're coming in front like this. So आगे सिर्फ आपको वो बिल्कुल थंबनेल की तरह, जैसे किसी को कील जैसी राउंडेड स्ट्रक्चर ही दिखाई देगा. आगे से काट रहे हो ना, तो पीछे से आता हुआ तो नहीं दिखाई देगा, बिकॉज आपको सिर्फ ये ग्राउंडेड अपीयरेंस दिखाई देगा, गाइस. These are nothing but yeah, देखो, these are called as columns of fornix. Right, these are nothing but the columns of fornix. Fornix, ठीक है, तो हमें सिर्फ राउंडेड अपीयरेंस दिखाई देगा, columns of the fornix, right? Now, guys, everything now which you will see, it will form the floor. It will form the floor. Lateral most structure की अगर मैं बात करूं, guys, the lateral most structure, you will find over here we have the body of the caudate nucleus. We have the body of caudate nucleus. आप ये आगे से देख रहे हो, आपने ब्रेन लिया, ब्रेन को ऐसे बिल्कुल कोरोनली काटा, ठीक है, और आपने पार्ट रिमूव किया और आगे से देख रहे हो कैसा दिख रहा है, कैसे कैसे बाउंड्रीज हैं इसकी, ठीक है. तो वी हैव द बॉडी ऑफ द caudate nucleus, guys, right? Body of the caudate nucleus. Now, guys, now remember, guys, yes, we also have like a structure that is like forming the roof over here, and that is called as the thalamus. That is called as the thalamus, guys. This is the thalamus. Now, in between the thalamus and the body of the caudate nucleus, two important structures are also present. Two important structures are also present, guys, right? These basically we get a vein over here. Let me draw a vein with a blue color only. Yes, that is called as the thalamostriate vein. Thalamostriate vein, and above to it, guys, above to it you will get stria terminalis. Stria terminalis. Yes, stria terminalis. Now remember, guys, this between the caudate nucleus and the thalamus, this is a white matter bundle. Stria terminalis is nothing but a white matter bundle, right? Basically, it is running from amygdala anteriorly, right? Running from amygdala anteriorly, guys, running from the amygdala anteriorly. So this is called as the stria terminalis, right? Over here. Now, a roughened structure, guys, which you will see making the floor part, right? A rough structure, which is you will see making the floor part, right? This is called as the choroid plexus. Okay, this is called as the choroid plexus, guys. Choroid plexus, right? Choroid plexus. So guys, remember guys that if I'm like talking about this body of the chordic nucleus, stria terminalis, thalamus striate vein, choroid plexus, and the thalamus, they all will form the floor of this lateral ventricle. They all will form the floor of the lateral ventricle. The roof, it is formed by the corpus callosum. Okay. The medial wall, it is formed by the septum pellucidum and the columns of fornix, the medial wall, and rest everything will form the floor of this lateral ventricle, will form the floor of this lateral ventricle, guys, right? So I hope this is clear, everyone. I hope this is clear, everyone. The lateral ventricle, guys, right? The lateral ventricle, guys, right? चलो फटाफट से एक थम्स अप दे दो अगर क्लियर हो गया है तो। फटाफट से एक थम्स अप दे दो अगर क्लियर हो गया है तो। चलो एक थम्स अप दे दो जल्दी से इफ इट इज क्लियर गाइस। हम्म। डॉक्टर अखिलेश शकील, वेरी गुड गाइस, वेरी गुड गाइस। सो that is yes. Now that is about the lateral ventricle, guys. Now let us just in short discuss about the, yeah, the third ventricle, right? The third ventricle. फ्लोर इंपॉर्टेंट होता है और इसमें भी like the floor is like very important. So we are going to discuss about the third ventricle. The third ventricle. Now guys, to see the boundaries of the third ventricle, I will be taking the sagittal section. Okay. Now exactly it's like in the midline, right? We have only one third ventricle, unlike the lateral ventricles which are in pair, right? Now over here, guys, remember first like 2-3 important things. What is, remember guys, it is the cavity of diencephalon. थैलेमस में बताया था ना, it is the cavity of the diencephalon, right? Okay. Now guys, remember it is a slit like cavity. What is the shape and site? Remember it is a slit like cavity. It is a slit like cavity lying in median plane, lying in the median plane, right, between the right and left thalamus. Okay, between right and left thalamus, right? It has an irregular outline, guys. It has an irregular outline, so like no need to worry. So yes, it has an irregular outline. It is a slit like cavity lying in the median plane between the right and the left thalamus, right? Communications, guys, you already know it is okay, you already know this communications. Let us just try to write in simply about the communications, right? On each side basically it communicates with the lateral ventricle. Okay, now let us suppose that this is the lateral ventricle and it is communicating to the lateral ventricle. Yes, and this is nothing but the third ventricle. It is communicating above with the lateral ventricle through a foramen, and that is called as interventricular foramen. Interventricular foramen. Okay, and it is communicating to the fourth ventricle. Yes, as if it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And it is communicating to the fourth ventricle, the third ventricle communicating to the fourth ventricle with the help of, yeah, the aqueduct of Sylvius, right? It is also called as cerebral aqueduct, or it is also called as aqueduct of Sylvius, right? So it is the cerebral aqueduct. So that is something you already know, the communications. The lateral ventricle communicate to third ventricle via interventricular foramen, and third to fourth via cerebral aqueduct. Cerebral aqueduct. Now, guys, let us just talk about the boundaries. Yes, let us just try to talk about the boundaries, guys. Now, for that, I will be again drawing a diagram, but this time I am taking the sagittal section. Boundaries of the lateral lateral, not the third ventricle. The third ventricle, and remember, guys, yes, this time I'm taking a sagittal section. Sagittal section. This time I'm taking a sagittal section, guys. Right now. let me just try to draw, and you guys already know that yes, this is the anterior part, guys, and this is the posterior part. Anterior से posterior run करेंगे. So you already know कि ये rostrum होता है. ठीक है, ये rostrum होता है, ये जीनो होता है, ये body होती है corpus callosum की, और ये splenium होता है. ये तो सब कुछ पता ही है तुम लोगों को. We have already drawn this corpus callosum a number of times, guys, right? Now below the rostrum of the corpus callosum, guys, you will see, right, a commissure, guys, that we have already discussed yesterday, and this is called as the anterior commissure. This is called as the anterior commissure, right? This is called as the anterior commissure, right? Now below the anterior commissure, guys, you will see a very thin, okay, sheet of gray matter. A very thin sheet of the gray matter, guys, right? And that is something which is called as lamina terminalis. Lamina terminalis, right? Now lamina terminalis. Now even guys, remember that you know the formix is coming in front. You already know we have the formix which is coming like in posterior to anterior, like you can see, and over here these are the anterior columns of the formix. Anterior columns of formix, right? Now basically these all three structures will form the anterior wall of the third ventricle. It will form the anterior wall of the third ventricle, guys. The third ventricle. The third ventricle. ये anterior commissure मैंने तुम लोग को कल भी पढ़ाया है. I've already taught you this, guys, yesterday also, right? This anterior commissure we have discussed yesterday as well, right? So yes, the देखो formix पीछे से आगे आ रहे हैं, so we have the anterior columns of the formix. Rostrum के नीचे एंटीरियर कमीशन, और एक बिल्कुल थिन लाइक ग्रे मैटर जो आप लोग को देखने को मिलता है, दैट इज लेमाइना टर्मिनालिस, राइट? नाउ कमिंग ऑन टू द पोस्टीरियर साइड, गाइस. पोस्टीरियर साइड स्प्लेनियम के नीचे, मैंने तुम लोग को कल भी पढ़ाया, स्प्लेनियम है, और स्प्लेनियम के नीचे एक ग्लैंड देखने को मिलती है. कैन एनीवन टेल मी द नेम ऑफ द ग्लैंड विच इज फाउंड बिलो द स्प्लेनियम? कौन सी ग्लैंड होती है विच इज लाइक फाउंड बिलो द स्प्लेनियम ऑफ द कॉर्पस कैलोसम? ये पूरा कॉर्पस कैलोसम है. यस गाइस, यू ऑलरेडी नो. यहाँ पर हमें बेसिकली सबसे पहले तो हमें लेमाइना देखने को मिलता है. वी हैव द पीनियल ग्लैंड, गाइस. वी हैव द पीनियल ग्लैंड. यस, वी हैव दिस पीनियल ग्लैंड, राइट? दिस इज द पीनियल ग्लैंड. और इसी पीनियल ग्लैंड के दो लेमाइना होते हैं. एक ये सुपीरियर लेमाइना और एक ये इंफीरियर लेमाइना. Yes, Shakil Ahmed, very good. We have the superior lamina and we have the inferior lamina. सुपीरियर लेमाइना में कल भी बताया था वी हैव अ कमिशर दैट इज कॉल्ड एज हेबीन्यूलर कमिशर. देखो कॉर्पस कैलोसम कैन नॉट कनेक्ट एवरी पार्ट ऑफ द सेरिब्रल हेमिस्फेयर. So we have in addition to this corpus callosum some other commissure also which helps in the attachment, right? We have this anterior commissure, we have this in the superior lamina we have this hebeneular commissure, right? We have already discussed this commissure yesterday. Now in the inferior lamina we have the posterior commissure. We have the posterior commissure, guys, right? We have the posterior commissure. Now in the posterior part, guys, yes, Neon, you can just text your doubt. Yeah, we have over here the aqueduct of Sylvius, right? We have the aqueduct of Sylvius or the cerebral aqueduct, guys. Aqueduct of Sylvius or the cerebral aqueduct, guys, right? So that is something you have to like remember. It is like continuing in the fourth ventricle, right? So these all structures over here, the hebeneular commissure, the posterior commissure, and the aqueduct of Sylvius basically forms the posterior wall of the third ventricle. Posterior wall of the third ventricle. Now, coming on to the floor, guys, the floor again is very, very important. Now, guys, to understand the floor, I would first take you to something which is like very, very important and which we have discussed a lot number of times, guys. That is regarding this the interpedencular fossa, guys. The interpedencular fossa. The interpedencular fossa. And let us just try to look at this interpedencular fossa over here. I hope I have this diagram. Let us just try to see the interpedencular fossa. Just a moment, guys. Yes, we'll have this. Hmm. Okay, let me just. Let me. Okay. Okay. Let me just show you. If you guys just remember the interpedencular fossa, guys. Okay. The contents of the interpedencular fossa. If you just remember this, guys. Interpedencular fossa, guys, you just have to remember over here certain things. You already know anteriorly we have the optic chiasma. एंटीरियर से पोस्टीरियर जाते हैं बेटा, एंटीरियर से पोस्टीरियर जाते हैं एंड एक्जैक्टली बेटा पीछे की तरफ वो उसका पूरा का पूरा लाइक इट इज फॉर्मिंग द फ्लोर गाइस, इट इज फॉर्मिंग द फ्लोर गाइस. यस, ऑप्टिक काइस्मा सबसे आगे, उसके नीचे आपको ये स्टॉक मिलता है किसका, पिट्यूटरी का, जिसको इनफंडिबुलम बोलते हैं. ठीक है, उसके नीचे आप लोग को क्या मिलेगा, राइट देखो एंटीरियरली ऑप्टिक काइस्मा है, फिर आ जाएगा स्टॉक इनफंडिबुलम, फिर ये ट्यूबर साइनेरियम होता है, फिर आपको मेमिलरी बॉडीज देखने को मिलती है. ठीक है, और पीछे फिर सबसे पीछे क्या मिलता है, पोस्टीरियर परफोरेटिंग सब्सटेंस, जो मैंने आप लोग को बताया था, इट इज परफोरेशन देखने को मिलती है, छेद देखने को मिलेगा, विच इज डन बाय द ब्रांचेस ऑफ पोस्टीरियर सेरिब्रल आर्टरी. Exactly this, guys, which forms the floor of this ventricle, the floor of this third ventricle, guys. Optic chiasma, अगेन ये स्टॉक क्या हो जाएगा, infundibulum. We have tuber cynorium along with the mammillary body, and we have the posterior perforating substance. Posterior perforating substance, and this is the one, guys, which will form the floor of this. This will be the one which will form the floor of this. So let us just try to draw the floor of this particular part. Let us just try to draw the floor of this particular part, guys, over here. So you can see optic chiasma in front, right? You can see the optic chiasma. You can see uske piche kya tha, infundibulum tha. Okay, infundibulum. We have tuber cynarium and the mammillary bodies, right? So I'm like drawing in one, tuber cynarium and the mammillary bodies. And guys, we have the posterior perforating substance over here, which continues to the midbrain, and the most posterior part of the midbrain, guys, it is called as the tegmentum, right? Yes, and then we have this. Yes. Let us just try to write this, guys. This is optic chiasma. We have infundibulum. Infundibulum. Yes, remember, guys, we have the tuber cynarium. Infundibulum, which connects like the pituitary gland, right? The tuber cynarium and mammillary body together, right? Mammillary body. And we also have these posterior perforating substance. Posterior perforating substance, which is basically perforated by the posterior cerebral artery, right? And guys, this part, it is called as the tegmentum of the midbrain. हमने section पढ़ा था ना, tegmentum of midbrain. ये midbrain ही है. And which part? It is the tegmentum of the midbrain. Right, it is the tegmentum of the midbrain. And remember, all this structure basically forms the floor of the third ventricle. All this structure forms the floor of the third ventricle, right? It forms the floor of the third ventricle, right? Now, guys, again over here, you have to remember, yes, you have to remember one more thing, guys, that the roof, it is basically formed by the yeah, the choroid plexus. Okay, let us just try to make it more diagrammatically correct. Yes, it is like below the formix part, guys. It is the choroid plexus. The roof, it is formed by the choroid plexus, which is below the formix, right? Which is below the formix, right? Anteriorly, guys, just remember we have the interventricular foramen, which is no extending, yes, to the aqueduct of the sylvius. So this sulcus, guys, this sulcus, okay, which is extending between the interventricular foramen to the aqueduct of sylvius. Okay, it is called as the hypothalamic sulcus. Hypothalamic sulcus, guys. Right? It is separating like the two parts over here, guys. The above part, yes, it is called as the thalamus, which forms the lateral wall, and below, yes, we have the hypothalamus. ऑब्वियसली बात है, बीच में कैविटी, तो साइड में, लेटरल साइड में क्या प्रेजेंट होगा, लेटरल वॉल में क्या प्रेजेंट होगा, ऊपर थैलेमस आ जाएगा और नीचे क्या हो जाएगा, हाइपोथैलेमस. So basically this hypothalamic sulcus, it is extending from the interventricular foramen to the aqueduct of sylvius, and this thalamus and hypothalamus basically will form the lateral wall. The lateral wall, guys, right? और बीच में कैविटी होती है, So that is something you have to remember about the boundaries of the third ventricle and especially the floor. That is very important. And if you know the interpedunculaर fossa, optic chiasma infundibular cinerarium, बिल्कुल आगे से पीछे जाओगे, so you will have the same content over here as well. वो बिल्कुल नीचे है, बिल्कुल it's forming the floor of this cavity. Okay, so that is the anterior wall, the roof, the posterior wall, and the floor of the third ventricle, guys. The third ventricle. So that is about the third ventricle. In 2 slides, I have completed it. The fourth ventricle, guys. Yes, we have already discussed this corona radiata, right? We have already discussed the internal capsule, right? We have already discussed, yes, the histological sections, right? We have already discussed the histological sections, right? So we have completed all the topic for today, right? Yes, we have discussed the transverse section. We have discussed homunculus. We have discussed, yes, the histological section as well, right? So that is for all. And this is, guys, right? You can. Hmm, I don't know why it is hanged. Chalo. Chalo, let's end the session, guys. Yes, we have already discussed today, yes, all the parts. Chalo. Any doubts, guys, you can just text to my Instagram. That is, I have already given the Telegram. Yes, you can text over here. Yeah, you can join my Telegram group for the notes, and Instagram, you can just text me your doubts, guys, if you have. We have already discussed here all the topics which I've discussed: the histology, the homunculus, the internal capsule, the transverse section of the cerebral hemisphere, the lateral ventricle, and the third ventricle. Right? Chal. Goodbye, guys.